Hello and welcome back to goldstocktrades.com. Today we have a new and special guest with us, Mr. Mark Smith. Mark is CEO of Niocorp. Niocorp can be traded as NB on the TSX Venture, and it also can be traded as NIOBF on the OTCQX. Thanks, Mark, for being here with us today.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Jeb.
Mark, you spent many years working in the niobium business. Could you give us a little bit of your background working for CBMM and a little bit about what niobium is, how it's used today, and a little bit of a background on the supply-demand dynamics?
Absolutely. Let's start with my experience with CBMM. First of all, I can't speak highly enough for that company. It's extremely well run. Their value system is second to none. And I learned a tremendous amount of how to do business right while I had the pleasure of working with them. And my capacity with them was kind of a shareholder representative slash board of directors member. I was the executive in charge of Molycorp at the time, and Molycorp had upwards of about a 45% equity position in CBMM. And so I would communicate and either travel to Sao Paulo, Brazil, go to special functions with the CBMM management team and their owners on about a quarterly basis. And so I got to know how they do business. I got to know their processing techniques. I got to know many of their customers through some of the customer meetings that we would have, and really got to understand that supply and demand situation, as well as kind of another fun part was to start to figure out all the different research that was being done on new uses of niobium in some of the high-strength, low-alloy steels that are produced today. So it was about a 7-year program where I was that shareholder representative, and obviously knew and worked with CBMM for a time before that period as well, but not in the lead position for Molycorp. That happened from 2000 to 2007. In terms of niobium and its uses, I guess one of the things I like to point out as I talk to anybody and try to educate them on what niobium is and how important it is, I like to go right to the automobile. Every single automobile in the world, every country, not just the U.S., this is China, Japan, Australia, South America, Africa, Russia, every place in the world that has metal-based automobile bodies or chassis, that metal is made with a niobium-based metal, niobium-based steel. So when I take a look at all of the automobiles on the road today, I get pretty excited about the use of niobium and its growth. And when you start realizing that although the auto industry went through a little bit of a trough in terms of sales in the last few years, they're absolutely on the upward swing, and the demand for niobium is growing accordingly. So I think, being able to realize as a consumer what the benefits of that niobium are pretty important. That niobium in the car actually makes it safer for us because that steel is harder as opposed to just using regular non-niobium-based steel. And it also makes the car lighter at the same time, which then gives us savings in terms of how much fuel we have to buy for our car to get from point A to point B. So it's an extremely important part of our economy today. And then if you take a look at things that are a little harder to touch as a consumer, but they're pretty important, look at any infrastructure projects in the world today, bridges, roads, new buildings that are going up, particularly the taller skyscraper-type buildings, and every single one of those projects is being spec'd out with niobium-based steel. And that's a very simple reason for that. If you take a look at a lot of the previous or older construction in China that just used regular steel, they did not have niobium in it, then you take a look at what happens when there are minor earthquakes in those regions, and you see entire buildings and bridges just fall down because they just have no strength or wherewithal to withstand that seismic pressure. Well, in the United States and Japan, that doesn't happen, and China has stood up and taken notice, and they figured out but that's because Japan and the United States, European Union as well, all spec out niobium-based steel for those construction projects. And when we have earthquakes in those regions, you don't see whole buildings fall down. You don't see bridges falling down. China's taken notice of that, and they are in fact changing their building codes to now require niobium-based steel in a lot of their infrastructure projects like bridges and buildings and roads. So the growth in demand for this material, I think, is actually a very exciting part of the business right now. And you know, that growth in demand, as well as the need to have more diversity of suppliers for niobium, is a large reason why I strongly believe that Niocorp will be the next and newest producing niobium property in the world.
Mark, let's talk about Niocorp's Elk Creek deposit. You have a track record of bringing mines into production, most recently having served as CEO of Molycorp, which became a publicly, you took it from a private company to become a publicly traded producing mine. What makes you think that Niocorp's Elk Creek, when you came to what brought that attention what brought your attention to this asset?
You know, there's the very first thing that I look at is the ore grade, and if you take a look at our 43101 report that has been published and is on our website for the Elk Creek site, you'll quickly figure out that this is the third richest niobium resource known in the world, and the only niobium resource known in the United States. So it has those things going for it right away. So I get to check that box off as that is very good, that's very positive. Then as I continued to do my due diligence on this project before I started to invest in it and ultimately became the CEO in it, I started to check a whole bunch of other boxes too, like public support for the project. In my 33 years of business and building different facilities and new operations and brownfield operations, I have never in my life seen community support for a project like this. I had the pleasure of going out to the site 3 different times now and meeting the people that are going to be, the stakeholders in the area that we're going to be dealing with every day. And these are just the best, well-rounded, honest people that you can find. And I look forward to working with them every day out there because they're just good, honest people. We've got a very good market situation in terms of supply and demand. We covered that just a minute ago. The demand for this material just by itself is growing 4 to 6% every year. And now that we see China requiring as part of the new building codes the use of niobium-based steels, I think we could see the demand growth exceeding that 4 to 6% range very quickly. You take a look at the supply situation, and we've got 3 different producers in the world today. Every customer that buys niobium that we have met with has indicated that they would really like to see more diversity in terms of suppliers out there. So, you just kind of add up all of these boxes that you're ticking during your due diligence, and you start realizing that I'm a firm believer that good capital flows to good projects. And when I take a look at the Elk Creek project in Nebraska that Niocorp owns and is developing right now, I firmly believe that Elk Creek is the next niobium project to be in production and serving the steel industry throughout the world.
Mark, you recently put out news that Niocorp is performing a review of the work at Elk Creek. Could you give us some commentary on some of the work, how you're advancing the project?
Yeah, and let me really be pointed on that. We are advancing this project, but I also want to make sure that as we advance this project, that we're developing the scope of work for a drilling program, the scope of work for a metallurgy program, the scope of work for an environmental baseline program on a what I call fit-for-purpose basis. And what that means is that instead of putting 17 new drill holes in the ground, which would then convert all 100 million tons of our indicated and inferred resource into measured and indicated, we're going to, which by the way would result in about a 100-year life for the project. We're going to instead put 4 drill holes in the ground. And those 4 drill holes will be more than adequate to move over 30 years of ore into the measured and indicated category, which from a financing perspective is all that needs to be demonstrated. Once we're up and operating, then we can do our annual or every other year type drilling to make sure that we replace the resource that we have extracted and ensure the investors that we always have a 30-year mine plan to move forward. So what we're making sure we do is the best technical work possible, but we're also going to do only the amount of technical work that we need to get this facility up and producing and make sure that it's financeable. So it's a review that's making sure that all the work that is being done is the most efficient use of shareholder money, which maximizes shareholder value for the company. Very simple concepts.
Mark, you've just raised over $5.5 million since you've come on the management team. You yourself have invested your own money. Could you, as we conclude, could you highlight why investors should begin doing their research on Niocorp and what sort of differentiates you from the typical junior mining company?
Yeah, I think, again, I'm going to go back to some simple things like this is the 3rd richest niobium ore deposit known in the world, the only one known in the United States, outstanding community support, and we're putting a management team together now that has a track record of bringing facilities into production. So I think we're heading in the right direction, and we're adding the right people to make this a reality. When you take all of those positive things which bring good people to the management team and you put those in front of investors, they get very excited. And then you talk about the growth of use of niobium in the world, and then you take a look at the absolute need, from an antitrust standpoint as well as from a business risk mitigation standpoint in terms of the steel companies. They want more diversity of supply out there. And you add all these things up, it just everything points to we need another niobium resource in production in the world today. And when I take a look at all of the potential niobium resources that could come into production today, in my humble opinion, the Niocorp Elk Creek project is by far and away the best project to be the next one on stream. And I'm excited to be part of it. I'm excited to bring this thing forward. We're going to take it very, very technically. It's going to be done in a very technical and honest way. And we're going to create value by really demonstrating how tremendous this resource is that's in the ground. So it's an exciting time for the company right now. And I'll tell you that we are laser focused on getting this facility up and running in the absolute shortest time possible.
Mark Smith, CEO of Niocorp Developments, which can be traded as NB on the TSX Venture and as NIOBF on the OTCQX. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. The subject matter I love to talk about, so please feel free to call anytime.